Hi, my name is Nicole Alifanti. I am from CURE, the Coalition for Understanding Racism Through Education, and this is CURE is Curious, our podcast. I'm with my founder and board member, Pam Brandman, and we're with our great friends and nonprofit locally here in Mamaroneck, the Community Resource Center. Would you ladies please introduce yourselves?
Oh, yes. So first of all, thank you so much for having us today. We appreciate our partnership with CURE. And my name, Janet Rolon Fry. I'm the Deputy Director of the Community Resource Center.
And I'm Sylvia Falcon Rios. I am the immigration paralegal, and I'm also the full DOJ accredited representative. Thank you for having us.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here. So CURE and Community Resource Center have been working together now for about 10 years. In so many ways, we have highlighted domestic workers' rights and just so many issues right here in our community that we've partnered on. And we have already produced 5 episodes on immigration, and we felt like there was no way we could really put them out into the world without a conversation with you. And there's so much going on right now. So really, Pam and I are learning, and we want to jump into this very important conversation.
Yeah, I think maybe let's start if you could give us a brief history for folks who may not know anything about CRC. Tell us a little bit.
Absolutely. So CRC was founded in 1998 as the Hispanic Resource Center. And this organization was founded by local community members who wanted to respond to the needs of the local day laborers. Then over the years, we sort of grew into providing much more dedicated services, not just to day laborers or workers in general, but also to their families. And from there, we kind of like saw different ways in terms of how the Community Resource Center could be providing more dedicated services, not just to the parents, but also their children. And we were also seeing community members from different backgrounds back then, and also low-income families. So in 2015, we decided to change our name to Community Resource Center to show our inclusivity, but also to just tell the community that our doors are open for anybody who struggles. So this year marks our 27th year in the community,
Wow.
and we primarily serve the local village, but also other municipalities in the Sound Shore and all over Westchester County.
That's incredible, 27 years. Can you tell us a little bit? You have so many incredible programs, but right now, what's going on with the Community Justice Program?
Yeah, so the Community Justice Program is composed of a managing attorney that oversees our department. We currently also have a law graduate who is helping us. We have 3 paralegals, and we also have one immigration paralegal that handles immigration work. And we just recently received our accreditation for our community justice program, which is wonderful. This is a huge opportunity for clients to get represented in immigration court. So we have a full DOJ accredited representative is someone that is authorized to represent clients in front of a judge as well as in front of an officer. Not just filling out forms and doing translations, but it goes beyond the work, especially during these critical times. Right now, we have 2 full DOJ accredited representatives, which are technically really good because when the managing attorney is in family court or she's also in another hearing, it gives us the opportunity to act and do the representation. We know how costly it could be for an attorney to go to law school, get your doctorate, and here it's actually a program that runs really well because the DOJ accredited representative has to do a lot of trainings, has to go to doing more than 40 hours per the cycle to kind of get involved and know the immigration law because it's constantly changing. We know that with this new administration, there's always going to be a new policy, you know, it's going to be revolving, and there's so much information right now that we need to be aware of. And this is where we come in. We're able to represent clients and immigration court. We're able to kind of ease the community. We're also very involved in like doing the Know Your Rights presentations, letting them know what are the new policies that are affecting us directly, especially here in Mamaroneck, that we have a large community. And we're also doing immigration clinics where we're supporting the community with facilitating them a family preparedness packet, which is huge, especially in times of people being deported. We know how heartbreaking it could be. We know that families are right now in the shadows because they're scared to come out, because they don't know what resources are available. Our program offers all that and more. So we're able to guide them through the immigration courts and the process that could be very lengthy. Not only that, it's very scary to kind of just go in front of a judge not knowing if you're going to return home to your family. So that's why it's so important for us to guide them. And this is where the program kind of evolves, because we're guiding them from the beginning of doing a consultation. We're providing free consultations at the immigration clinics, and then we're telling them what advices, what resources are available in the community for them, what they could benefit from. We're seeing that right now, many of the courts are doing speedy trials, where before a case, for an asylum case that took about 5 to 10 years to be seen, now it's within months. And they're not getting a second chance. It's either you have your case prepared with all your evidence, or you're going to get an order of removal. And this is where, Janet, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
No, definitely. I think that when the community justice program was, I would say, instituted within the CRC, we thought that this is, you know, a great way to also respond to the needs of immigration consultations and also relief, like Sylvia explained. But we never realized how crucial and existential, you know, it is to have an immigration program within CRC. As you know, I mean, different administrations kind of like leave us to see in what direction our services are sort of being allocated, or in what ways we respond to different type of changes when it comes to the community. And I think this year was actually a testament to that.
So you're doing it in real time, which is exhausting and brilliant on your part. Just to not jump the gun, and I think I did, what we're talking about are the rapid changes in this policy, in this administration's policy with TPS, asylum, all these words we hear that so many of us don't even know what they mean. But you could come to this country seeking refuge and all of a sudden be be told this is the path, and you're following that path. You're not under the radar. You have an ITN number, which is like a tax ID number. You're working, you're paying taxes. You're not getting the benefits of those taxes. And you're told by America, like, this is the path. But what you're seeing and what you're constantly adjusting to is, no, actually, that's not the path anymore. And it's not about deporting some guy. It's about, this is someone's father, this is someone's husband or mother or wife. And so that's how you're constantly adjusting with this program.
Yes, absolutely. And just, you know, the beginning of 2025, we saw a number of policy changes, and at a pace that we haven't, you know, seen, at least, you know, with my time with CRC, which is, you know, we're talking about changes in immigration practices, as you mentioned, right? There is a path to seek asylum. There's a path to apply for TPS. There's a path for everything. Of course, it's not perfect. You know, the system still needs to be improved, but at least there was some knowledge and direction as to how to navigate it. But when you sort of hear these policy changes happening, you first need to adjust yourself as to how the law will be applied within that new context, and then at the same time inform the people that you're representing, like Sylvia said, or just, you know, guiding that, you know, scratch whatever, you know, we told you before. Now it is a new thing. It is completely disruptive, not just for an immigration case, but also when it comes to living your life as an immigrant. So you now, you know, need to look over your shoulders as to, oh my gosh, what happens if ICE sees me and just, you know, detains me for no reason. So in terms of these policy changes, especially on enforcement, and also on immigration, an immigration court, we have to adapt as to how do we respond to meet the need. And one of those have been doing more know your rights trainings, doing more immigration clinics, so at least community members who are sort of like in limbo or maybe have questions about, am I a target now? You know, they can at least have an immigration consultation like Sylvia, you know, mentioned. And also other initiatives kind of like, you know, come up, or just you start thinking about in what ways you can really protect the community that you're serving, since you know that some things are happening randomly, so to speak. So the CRC last year with some legal service providers, board members, and also our legal team, we came together and talked about habeas corpus, because we saw a number of detentions happening without any sort of judicial warrant. There was, I mean, people were disappeared and are still being disappeared. So habeas corpus, it is a constitutional legal remedy that a detained person has the right to ask a federal court as to whether the government has the legal authority to hold you. And that's crucial for us right now, since we are seeing a pattern of detentions without any sort of explanation as to why people are being detained. And once you're detained, you very quickly disappear in that system, not just physically, because then you're taken from one state to another until the government decides to deport you, but also it is very hard to get a hold of you for a family member, because you're being moved, at a rate that, it's hard to keep up. So the Habeas Corpus Task Force, the idea of why it was formed is to be able to identify potential clients of CRC who are going through immigration court hearings, or maybe their status is not yet defined, that could be at risk of being detained. So then the Habeas Corpus Task Force, it is to identify, prepare petitions, and very quickly respond in case one of our clients is detained, without an explanation, and be held, for a prolonged time. So that initiative is really helpful, because it gives us a sort of sense that, okay, we're not only responding in terms of immigration services or representation, but also we're acting on when it's most needed, and it's usually when a person is detained. I mean, we have seen so far number of operations happening on the Sound Shore. So we know that it is only a matter of time that one of our clients, and it has already happened, that they have been detained, but thank goodness they haven't, they haven't been, detained for a long time, or they haven't been detained at all. But we are getting ready to respond, from that end.
So there's so many amazing programs that you all are involved in, instituted in helping answer to this call to support immigrants. I know there's also the Care For campaign. So can you explain to us a little bit about how that integrates into all these other programs?
Yes, so the Care For Immigrant Families is a campaign that calls for access, representation, and equity. So when you, for example, just to give you an example as to why this coalition sort of came together, is because when you are charged with a criminal for a criminal reason, you have the right to an attorney. But in immigration court, that doesn't happen. And usually to seek asylum, for example, you need to go through the immigration system, as well as also another system, which is kind of like a parallel, but it's outside immigration court. But in order to navigate that system in immigration court, you need a legal professional that understands the law, see how put together a case, and as Sylvia said, put in evidence to really validate your story as to why you're seeking asylum in the U.S. So there is completely, for one, the number of people seeking legal representation is so high that nonprofits are not keeping up, and private attorneys, unfortunately, their fees are so high that, especially people seeking asylum who come here without anything and are not given, a work permit the moment that they enter into the country. They have to retain an attorney to go through the process to be able to get a work permit at some point.
Right.
So they don't have the financial means to retain private counsel. So this campaign calls for more funding for legal services, especially for legal service providers that are eligible to access this fund, but also for people to have access to that legal representation that is so crucial, because we're talking about deciding your life, and sometimes it's life or death. Because if you're seeking asylum and you're being persecuted from your home country, one thing that you don't want to face is going back.
Right.
Yeah.
So in order to really have, for one, a fair chance, being able to have an attorney who can speak and back up your case, because the government also has well-trained attorneys that will try to see that maybe your case is not at the level of being granted asylum.
Right.
So, and also the evidence that they need, I didn't know how asylum law, works. And it only got to us to go in depth into it. And with our attorneys, especially with Sylvia, she's a DOJ fully representative, that with her understanding, training, and attorney supervision, she's able to represent clients, and she sees the value of that.
That's incredible.
So this campaign really calls for for more funding for legal services, but at the same time, we are the coalition calls for the passing of the Access to Representation, which is a bill that will guarantee an attorney for immigrants who are at risk of deportation. So it's also crucial, because then they don't have to go and look around and see whether an organization has capacity to provide that service.
Right.
They will be, having that right to actually have that attorney the moment they are detained.
Yeah. And that's such a foundational piece of just America, right? I mean, due process and being represented, and when you are represented, you're above ground, you're not hiding. And so the bigger picture for what fascinates me that Americans don't understand is, if you take due process or representation away from one person or one group of people, you can take it away from anyone. It's one of the things that binds us and makes us the democracy that we are. And so it's really huge to rip that away from people and be so inhumane and so kind of ignorant of the human rights factor of it, because at any given moment, our government could decide anyone with a skirt like this doesn't get due process, and it just really is. It's fascinating that we're taking this so lightly, that it's the immigrants that it's happening to, but it could happen to any of us at any moment.
Absolutely. Especially, that's such a great point in terms of due process. We know that, due process is one of the things that actually give you the opportunity to defend yourself.
Right.
And when you see how that's being undermined in immigration court, then you start questioning about, is the limit there?
Right.
But at the same time, is it fair? I think if we are talking from a perspective of fairness, there's already a path designed to seek these immigration reliefs. Why are we changing the game?
Racism.
And that's what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, and then instead of the audience to understand much more as to whether that's right or not, which I think it's not right, why aren't we talking much more about that, preserving something that it is so valuable for any American citizen, but also for anyone in this country, because if you don't get to tell your story, so what's there for you?
Yeah, in preparing for this, we were looking at the racism aspect of it and who's allowed in and who's not. And we decided that there'll need to be a whole other podcast about that, because it's between the rhetoric we've heard since 2016, just into the policy changes that are happening so rapidly, but just this idea that, literally our government is welcoming Afrikaners who are white South Africans, right? Claiming that they're in existential threat which they're not. Their country says they're not, and they're given welcome packages and an Android and a Constitution and a welcome to America. This is the only white group right now who's allowed to come to America as I think it's refugee status.
They're as refugees.
And so we
Yeah.
have to question who are in the detention centers. I think I did a little bit of research. There is something like maybe under a handful of cases of United Kingdom, Canadians, Australians who were detained because of expired visas, which shortly, ended, and they figured that out. They're not being sent back to impoverished, violent countries where they're fleeing for their lives, right? So there's such a small group. And then even the narrative that, well, we're detaining criminals who are, immigrant criminals. 70% of the people in detention centers have no criminal records. When they do, it's DUIs, it's traffic violations. This is
Nonviolent.
it's literally making a quota of human bodies in these centers. And like we said in the beginning, this is breaking up ecosystems and families. And so we will expand on the racism that this is truly about, and sort of the white nationalism that has bubbled up so deeply in our country right now.
Is there anything else? You've touched on a lot of things that I know are not making huge headlines right now, but is there anything else that you're seeing impact our specific community that is sort of simmering under the surface that you would want to highlight for folks that really touches on the personal aspect of this?
Do you want to go?
Sure. I think that right now the focus is educating our community, and also getting as many folks involved in our movement to volunteer, because this is where we need the help, like Janice said. When it comes to advocacy, we want to make sure that not just a legal representative and a client shows up to Albany to talk to our congressman, but we also want more people involved, more voices heard, so that way we know that we're not alone, and we're definitely seeking more funding for legal representation, because it speaks volumes. Our program has, started only with like 3 people: legal assistant, the managing attorney, and the immigration paralegal. Now we're growing because it's talking of how much people are needing our services. Our work is doubling, tripling. By every month that passes, we're getting more clients that are seeking legal representation, and that's something that's huge. And the reason why is because, like we mentioned, kind of going back, that all these cases that were going to be put in 5 to 10 years, now it's a speedy trial, and this is why it's really important more than ever to get the funding that we need to continue doing our work. That's why our program is expanding. We're in the middle of hiring another attorney. Why? Because there's more cases out there. There's more people that need their stories to be heard. Not to mention, we're working on doing an immigration clinic this week coming up on Saturday. This is something huge where we're going to be offering that legal advice. We're also telling our families to come in to talk to us. We have family services within our center. We're connecting case management to us. And the reason why, because there's a lot of families that are in crisis. Unfortunately, their children are, this is the middle of the summer. They're going back to school in September. We want to make sure that those kids feel that their parents are safe. Going, just taking a simple walk from your house to school within Mamaroneck, it's a very short distance for many families, and we want to make sure that those kids feel safe as well as their parents. And we want to make sure that when they come back home, they're going to know mom or dad or both are going to be home waiting for them. And that's why legal representation is more important than ever to address those issues. And it's very crucial. And I think that kind of also brings us to the next question, which is how our department kind of manages, self-care. It's really important because this work could be very overwhelming, day in, day out. We kind of listen to these stories of families, and it's very traumatizing for many of the families that come from Southern America, the terrible things that they have to do to come in. And unfortunately, we're the listening ear to those stories, all the violence that they have to go through just to get here, and they're following everything, and they're kind of doing everything step by step that they're told to do, And I think most of our staff, we kind of do gatherings where we, especially during lunchtime. I think that this is where we kind of just disconnect and we connect with one another. We know that within our department, we're moms, because it's only ladies, so we know that it's like it's hard.
Fascinating.
It is,
Yeah.
you know, and we kind of deal and we listen to the stories. So I think at the end of the day, it's self-care is really important, you know, because in these time and ages, there's really not so many attorneys that want to be attorneys. They rather just say, you know what, let me just drop the towel. It's too much to handle. And it is, because we're not going to win every case. We know that. But what we do know is we're giving our all in our best. And that's what matters the most. When you go home, the reward that we get is when we know that we won a case and we put all our efforts, you know, and it's not just our team, but we also have interns helping us, volunteers helping us, you know, when it comes to court accompaniments, they're coming with us. And I think this is something that we want the community to know, that it's not just a couple of people behind the scenes. It's a whole movement. It's the community that comes and steps up and says, you know, how can I help? Do you need someone to go and take someone to an ICE check-in, which is very important. You need to follow the law. So sometimes we do get like our group connected, and we want to find volunteers that are able to go, because, you know, and a simple ICE check-in could help someone not be deported. If they don't show up and just say, I'm here, I'm following what I'm supposed to be doing, that can mean that that officer is going to send in, oh, this person never showed up, to the judge, and the judge is going to automatically get an order of removal for that person for not showing up. So things like that are very crucial, to have volunteers around, to have people that are going to take those clients, you know, by the hand and go with them to those appointments are very important. Because at the end of the day, it's that connection that that volunteer establishes with the client that kind of makes them feel at ease, to know that if I don't come out from the ICE check-in, at least I know that somebody went with me, and they're going to be able to bring that information back to my attorney or my family. I think that's why it's really important to kind of help us, you know, so we can help the families.
And CRC trains for that, right? So if right now I decided I might have time to start go to check-ins, I reach out to CRC. I will get like a package or a video or a conversation, something. I'm not just getting sent out into the wilderness with someone, right?
No, exactly. We have our volunteer program that works closely with our community justice program, especially to do these kind of tasks that sometimes, you know, requires a little bit of an understanding where they're getting into. And we provide sort of like you know, a talk through of, what it is to accompany a person to an ICE check-in or an immigration, you know, court. And then most of what our clients look for is the emotional support, because we know volunteers can only accompany a person only up to the point that they are going into the building, I mean, at the door. And then, you know, the clients are there to, you know, fend for themselves. So I think that, you know, it is in a way a little maybe frustrating, because sometimes it is important to know what's happening inside, because, you know, going to a nice check-in is going into a whole building. So you don't know what floor, you don't know what room. And sometimes, you know, a person may not leave because it goes straight into detention. So I think it's, you know, we appreciate volunteers who, you know, maybe they have some free time, or they just want to do this work because they care, you know, about what's happening. And I think Sylvia was so right in saying that, you know, the news are not picking up as to how legal service providers have been struggling, not only physically, because it's much more demanding in terms of how you gotta now prepare your cases, especially if they're changing the whole game in front of you.
Every week.
You know, how do you
Every,
re-strategize?
week.
How do you respond? How do you file a motion? How do you, I mean, it is, you know, kind of like being on, you know, ready to respond, kind of like on a crisis mode, right? And then aside from that, they have to go home and deal with their families and with their personal life. So
And turn that off, which is not possible.
You can't
no,
compartmentalize
especially
that,
if you have kids.
Right.
Our, you know, community justice programs also represent children.
Yeah.
And then, and I think that is kind of like the much more impactful in terms of your mental health. Because if you have children, how can you separate those two? When you know that, you know, the fear of a child, just to entertain the thought of being separated from their parents, or being sent back to a place that was horrible, it is traumatic. But then children, you need to kind of like find the right words to explain what's happening. And sometimes, they understand, sometimes they don't. But, it is something that you, as the person providing the service, you're left with. And as you say, how you turn that off. So mental health, as Sylvia is saying, it's so key in continue doing this work, because it is true. There are immigration attorneys that they just can't continue, seeing the suffering, and that there is no legal remedy anymore, which is, I think that is the big change this time, that legal remedy that was there, that at least provided some hope for families, has disappeared.
It's very tenuous.
Exactly. And so then what else do you, in what way you help, you respond? So I think that is the most frustrating for legal service providers. So then they are preferring not to even practice immigration law, because you can lose your mind,
Yeah. Can I ask who is eligible to get accredited the way you were, Sylvia? Like who can go through the 40 hours and get the accreditation? What do you have to have before you do that?
So I think the number one is you need to have the passion to do this work. Most importantly, it's just that you need to, there really isn't a requirement that says you need to have this, this, and this. It's more that there is a lot of legal research involved. There's a lot of growth within the person. So there's constant learning. Like Janet mentioned, right now policy changes could happen overnight. Sometimes in one day we have 5 that could affect someone for like the rest of their lives. So it's more of how much time are you investing in yourself to do the growth, but while you're still practicing, you're still, this is a everyday, even for attorneys that have done this for 30 years. Right now, the law is changing dramatically to where they have to sit down and just constantly review the new policies that are coming out, the updates. So it's a lot of investment, a lot of you going into a library and studying that, because this is what's going to basically determine someone's future. So I would say it's more the investment that person is going to take and the dedication that they do. Because yes, we do attend the trainings, they're offered, but at the end of the day, those trainings are not just going to do it. It's not like you're going to read a book. No. There you go. When you go into the real world and you go into in front of a judge, that's where your training begins, because every judge is different, and especially the ones that we're seeing now, they're not going to be nice. They're not going to say, I'm following the rules of the book. They're just going to say, this is a denial, and you need to be prepared for that, and it's more like every day you have to study, and every day you have to learn what the policies are, what the changes are. You have to study the law, the writing, the legal research writing. It's very different to how it was before. And I think it's self-investment, the growth, it's very important for you to kind of dedicate yourself, because, yes, we work 40 hours a week, but here you're talking about you're dedicating your life to kind of studying law. Like Janet said, sometimes our start time is 9 a.m. We leave at 5. But for the people that are really invested in the program, after 5, we don't really say like, oh, we're disconnecting. No. Like, I love reading books. I love getting into like, oh, what else can I learn? Wow. Especially with certain countries. You need to learn the conditions of the country. You need to also investigate and learn, why things are changing so swiftly in certain countries. Why are people coming to the United States? Why are they migrating? And that's what's kind of catching the difference, and not just doing a regular like legal research paper writing that's 1 page. We're talking about 100 pages. There's cases that invest a lot of time. So I think anyone is eligible as long as you are invested in learning, because this is a revolving era. We're kind of just going from simple textbooks to real stories. And I think that's something that's really important. Not only that, you also have to pass a background check. That's really important. You need to go in front of a judge to see if you're really fit. And one of those is a good moral character. You have to be a person that's following the rules and the law, and that's also continuously studying. So that's one of the biggest, things that you need. And people that are DOJ accredited representatives, they obviously cannot be attorneys in the past or cannot be present attorneys. So that's something that is for someone.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
like if you're a retired attorney,
No.
really, because you would
Well,
think that'd be a great candidate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think what makes the difference, as Sylvia is saying, is the training. And this program, the DOJ program, has existed for a long time, but it's something also that is not being talked about.
Right.
And you can find information on it as to the application and the documentation that you need to send in with your application to show the experience and also your training, because DOJ's representative work under the supervision of an attorney. That is, one key piece that needs to be a part of it in order for your application to get approved. Because, these are just a representative that learn immigration law, learn how to represent, how to put cases together, draft motions, but all of that work is being supervised by an attorney that knows how to look at that documentation. So to answer your question also, Nicole, is that anyone, for CRC, for example, yeah, we actually wanted our staff to have that opportunity, being able to represent. So we encouraged training. Our managing attorney was very supportive of it. And there are two levels of accreditation. You have the partial accreditation, which is kind of like, once you take your 40-hour training on immigration law, is sort of like the basics, of immigration law. You are able then to screen people, to provide maybe basic consultations, and once you get more experience and also litigation training, then you can apply to represent, people in court. And that's the second level of the accreditation.
That's really incredible.
Yes. So, in this program, as Sylvia said, it's available to anyone as long as they're, also, I just don't want to talk about the accreditation as a standalone program. It is actually a program that is part of a 501c3, an organization that it's being recognized by the Department of Justice to have a accredited representative with it. So it's not like I'm a DOJ representative and I can go elsewhere to do my representation. No, it is tied to the organization, and it is tied even physically. That when you are providing legal services, it has to be within the space that it is also provided by the organization and so forth. So it is much more. It is monitored. It has its safeguards. So then people, immigrants, in this case, get the right representation, but at the same time allows for more legal representative to be out there and provide support. Absolutely.
Wow, it's amazing. I feel like our time is winding. Did we miss any major questions? Because I have a couple things in my mind. If we did, did we?
I just maybe one thought. This was great. Thank you so much, for allowing us to share what's happening within, the community justice program, but also how CRC is responding to the moment. I think one takeaway that I would love your audience to have is, for one, staying informed. It's crucial. I know that things are changing every day, and sometimes it's overwhelming and hard to catch up. But connect with a nonprofit that is providing these services. Hear the stories. These are real people. These are our neighbors. So, and then when we hear changes about due process, when we hear someone being detained in our own community, just remember that that's not abstract. That is actually impacting families and impacting our whole community, because then protection, it's only for the few, or maybe not for, I'm an immigrant myself, and I cannot detach from how the feelings and the fear that it's being, that I hear when I turn on the news or when I hear people talking, that, I'm part of the mix. I'm also a target just because I'm an immigrant. And that's something that we need to change. That is, something that we need to I don't know, like embrace that we are a diverse country, and immigrants have contributed tremendously in at so many levels, starting with the food, the culture, traditions. We celebrate, holidays that are celebrated in other communities. That's who we are. And I think reminding ourselves of who we are is how we're going to respond to this moment. And, just and stay connected, absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't, that you said so much of what I wanted to say, and I also didn't want to glaze over the fact that we're sitting here and we're part of the Mamaroneck community. We're mothers in the community, and you said that there are, looking to the fall when school starts, we're going to be, identifying families and children who are afraid. And I just kind of wanted to take a second to pause on that reality that we'll all be rushing to get our backpacks and get to school and get ready, but that the children in the classrooms with our children will be under an existential burden that we couldn't imagine. And I do think that because there's so much every day, because it changes, because it's so overwhelming, because in addition to immigration issues, there are a million other issues being thrown at us. And I'm wondering if just in this moment we could say to our Mamaroneck neighbors, slow down, pay attention, we're here, CRC is here. If you feel overwhelmed and you're shutting things off, here's one organization you can be part of. You can accompany people to their ICE hearings. You can just ask teachers how you think kids are doing. Ask other mothers, do we need support? Can you maybe become a DOJ accredited person? Like, pause and just know that it's all overwhelming, but that your organization is doing such courageous work and it's at our fingertips, and you don't have to be, I could not be a DOJ accredited person. I couldn't even remember the questions. So let's but I probably could accompany someone, or I could check in with students and teachers and mothers, and so breathe and pick a way to get involved with the Community Resource Center.
No, yes, and thank you for that. And also, I just want to add something that actually it happened in my daughter's classroom, that they stopped seeing one of their friends. So how is that land on you? Maybe you are not an immigrant, but if you have children, they attend a school with immigrants, and when you don't see a friend or a classmate that used to be there, that is something that you also have to wrestle with. So, and I think in that moment, the pausing, what you're saying, Nicole, it is so important, because it is not just the children who are being part of this system. It is also about the friends that they make when they're here, and they are going to feel the absence of those, friends.
Yes, and we do have a close local friend who said goodbye to a family who her children were friends with and who she was going to school with. And so it's real and it's happening, and there just are many ways to connect to this in a very personal way that could make people feel like they're doing something,
Absolutely.
Yes.
So
Yes.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So
Thank you.
Community Resource Center, Cure. Thank you for listening to Cure is Curious. If you want information about CRC, it's CRCNY, like New York, right? .org. CRCNY.org, and we're learnwithcure.org. The podcast will be out, and there'll be more.
Yes, no, thank you so much for having us and for letting us share. And I hope that, the audience can feel inspired and connect with both of our organizations.
I know